on a Londoners. Cyber-Nomad. Cyber-Nomad.
Hi, Cyber Nomads, welcome back. So how are you liking that new intro, right? So courtesy of Poet on X, who did that for me. Very kind, definitely appreciate that. Today, right, not to pop your bubble and go to something dark, but we're going to talk about the dark side of Buy Me a Coffee, from pure intent to potential scam. Okay, that's on today's radar of discussion, right? And the reason why I'm doing this episode is because, right, Buy Me a Coffee was referred to me as well as every other, business person, creator on X, etc., to use, okay, for conversions and the approach for, your followers, your subscribers, your community and what have you, to help monetize. Now, I have a legitimate website with a legitimate business, okay? So I'm not trying to detract from folks trying to, make a little money on the side, et cetera, right? Especially on social media. I get it. But as a cybersecurity expert, I would be remiss if I didn't conduct my own security impact analyses on Buy Me a Coffee and share it, right, with my audience and listeners, okay? Being fully transparent and honest, right? I don't just go for trending words or phraseology or install different tools and sources without doing my own security impact analyses. And I always tell everybody to do that. Trust but verify. Even what I'm saying today, go conduct your own security impact analyses, right? And again, use at your own risk, right? So with that said, let's get started. When Buy Me a Coffee launched, it carried a simple, heartfelt mission, empower creators to receive direct support from their fans without the complexity of platforms like Patreon or Shopify. And the idea was pure, of course. Offer a straightforward way for YouTubers, musicians, writers, and other creators to accept one-time donations, memberships, or sell digital products like ebooks or Zoom calls. Right? It was marked as a creator-friendly platform, using secure payment processors like Stripe and promising transparency with a flat 5% transaction fee. So for many, it seemed like a dream come true, right? A way to monetize passion products while maintaining direct relationships with supporters, right? So passion projects, crowdfunding, etc., right? There's lots of different ways to do that. But beneath this wholesome facade, okay, vulnerabilities and misuse have cast a shadow over Buy Me a Coffee's original intent. Okay, unfortunately, what started as a tool for genuine creators has been exploited by bad actors, anonymous users, or people on eggs, as they're sometimes called on platforms like X, who hide behind faceless profiles to perpetuate scams. And these exploitations, coupled with the platform's own operational flaws, have led some to label Buy Me a Coffee as a potential scam itself. So let's dive into the vulnerabilities, the misuse, and why this once promising platform has become a cautionary tale. Right, so let's talk about its original intent, a creator's paradise, right? Buy Me a Coffee was designed to simplify the creator economy. Unlike Patreon, which focuses heavily on tiered memberships, right, or Shopify tailored for e-commerce, Buy Me a Coffee offered flexibility. So creators could set up a page in minutes, accept donations, and sell extras, right, like digital products or offer memberships for recurring support. The platform's use of Stripe for payments and its promise of instant payouts to bank accounts or weekly payouts via Payoneer or Wise for non-Stripe countries made it appealing. And it also allowed creators to own their supporter data, avoiding the scammy emails, per se, some platforms send to fans. Now, the pitch was compelling, right? It always is, right? A low 5% fee, no hidden costs, and a focus on creator autonomy. Now, for small-scale creators, think, indie artists, podcasters, or bloggers, it was a lifeline to monetize without needing a massive following. And the platform boasted over 1 million creators and millions of supporters. And success stories from YouTubers to nonprofits, right? And on paper, of course, it was pure community-driven model to help creators thrive. But let's talk about the vulnerabilities and where things go wrong here. So despite its intentions, Buy Me a Coffee has significant vulnerabilities that make it ripe for misuse. And these stem from both technical and operational issues, as well as lax oversight, which scammers exploit, unfortunately, right? They always do. The first one is weak verification and moderation processes. So Buy Me a Coffee requires user verification for payouts, but the process can be inconsistent. And some users report being asked for excessive documentation or facing sudden account suspensions without clear explanations. So for example, one Reddit user described their account being suspended for quote unquote concerns regarding adult content, with a promising payout delayed for 30 days, raising fears of never receiving their $110 balance. Now, another user on Trustpilot reported canceled payments not being credited back, with support ghosting them for days. And these incidents suggest a verification system that can feel arbitrary, leaving creators vulnerable to losing their earnings altogether, right? So the platform's moderation also struggles to keep up with the fraudulent accounts. So while Buy Me a Coffee has a reporting system for violating pages, unfortunately, the reliance on user-submitted proof, like through screenshots and links and other elements, right, puts the burden on the community to police itself. So this reactive approach can allow scam pages to operate until reported, especially by anonymous users who set up accounts quickly to exploit unsuspecting supporters. Now let's talk about the payment processing risks, shall we? Because Buy Me a Coffee relies on Stripe for payments, which is generally secure with standard encryption protocols, right? However, Stripe's integration introduces risks, of course, particularly for users in unsupported countries who rely on Payoneer or Wise, where payout delays or currency conversion issues can and do occur. One user complained about being unable to withdraw funds to Bulgaria, calling it a scam due to the platform's failure to support their region despite accepting their donations. Additionally, supporters have reported unrecognized charges, with Buy Me a Coffee's response often limited to directing users to contact support, which can be slow or unhelpful, okay? Now let's talk about the anonymity and lack of transparency. The platform allows anonymous donations, which is great for supporter privacy, but a boon for scammers. Anonymous or egg accounts, those with the minimal profiles or default avatars, can create pages, collect donations, and disappear before detection. On X, posts have highlighted similar vulnerabilities in other platforms like the TEA app breach, where user IDs were exposed without authentication, comparing it to leaving a wallet unattended in a coffee shop. So while not specific to Buy Me a Coffee, this reflects a broader issue of platforms failing to secure their user data, which scammers can, of course, exploit, and they do, right? Every day, all day, right? Let's talk about payout delays and account deactivations. Numerous reviews cite payout issues as a major red flag. One user on Product Hunt described Buy Me a Coffee, right, demanding proof of donation sources, calling it an invasion of privacy and accusing the platform of holding funds unjustly. Another creator reported selling products but being unable to withdraw earnings, with support offering vague responses about refunding customers instead of releasing their funds. And these delays and deactivations, often tied to vague terms of service violations, fueled perceptions, of course, of the platform as untrustworthy, right? And rightly so. Let's talk about the scam, how people on eggs exploit it. Because the term people on eggs, refers to anonymous or shady users on platforms like X, often with blank profiles resembling the default egg avatar from X's early days, okay? That's where that comes from. And these users exploit Buy Me a Coffee's vulnerabilities to run scams, undermining its original intent. And here's how, okay? The first is fake creator pages. So scammers set up pages posing as creators, often using stolen identities or generic content to lure donations. And with minimal verification, they can collect funds before disappearing, right? The platform's reporting system relies on supporters noticing and submitting evidence, which can be too late at that point. Okay, let's be real. This mirrors broader online scams like fraudulent espresso equipment vendors, which using stolen credit card info, of course, where victims only realize the scam after funds are gone, okay? And then phishing and fraudulent charges is another scam, right? Supporters face risk from phishing attempts tied to Buy Me a Coffee pages because one user shared a story of a fraudulent charge on their card, initially thinking it was legit until their bank flagged it. And so scammers may send fake payment confirmations or links mimicking Buy Me a Coffee's branding, exploiting the platform's trust altogether. The FTC's warning about "Are you free for coffee?" scam text, of course, highlights how scammers use seemingly innocent lures to steal data or money, a tactic that could easily extend to donation platforms. Now let's talk about also exploiting adult content bans, because Buy Me a Coffee bans adult content due to payment processor restrictions. But scammers exploit this by creating seemingly innocent pages that skirt the rules, only to face suspensions that trap creators' funds. And one Reddit user noted that their account was banned for vague reasons, leaving them uncertain about recovering their balance. Scammers may also use this to their advantage, collecting donations under false pretenses before moderators catch up. Right, let's talk about the bigger picture. Okay, a tarnished vision. Buy Me a Coffee's original intent was to democratize creator support, but its vulnerabilities have allowed bad actors to thrive. Okay, the platform's 4.1 star rating from 16 reviews, on Real Reviews as an example, realreviews.io, right? So again, this is my own analysis. You can do your own, okay? And you may come up with something different, okay, based upon your information, right? The problem is, however, the 4.1 star rating, again, from only 16 reviews on realreviews.io, masks a split reality where some creators praise its simplicity. Others report being ripped off or unable to access funds. Okay, so there's that. On X, sentiment is mixed. Okay, some users engage positively with Buy Me a Coffee's post, giveaways for free coffee or tip, for the space. But others highlight data breaches and scams in similar platforms, signaling broader distrust. Okay, and you can look up where I pulled that from was realreviews.io /reviews/buymeacoffee.com. Okay, that's where I pulled that from. All right, so the platform's issues are not unique. Okay, Patreon and Ko-fi also face similar challenges, but Buy Me a Coffee's lighter moderation and reliance on third-party payment systems amplify the risks. So for every genuine creator, there's a risk of an egg account exploiting the system, of course, turning a tool meant for good into a vehicle for fraud. Okay, so how can you protect yourself then? If you're a creator or a supporter considering Buy Me a Coffee, proceed with caution. For creators, verify payment options for your country before committing. Use strong passwords and monitor your account for suspicious activity, and be transparent with your supporters to build trust and avoid moderation flags. For supporters, check the creator's legitimacy before donating, okay? Look for established online presence. And avoid clicking links and unsolicited emails or messages claiming to be from Buy Me a Coffee. Report, of course, suspicious messages and pages immediately. Now, for both, be wary of platforms that seem too good to be true and creators that seem too good to be true, okay? Research alternatives like Ko-fi, which some users prefer for lower fees, or Patreon for stricter oversight. Okay, so, in conclusion, has this dream gone sour, you think? Buy Me a Coffee started with a pure vision, okay? A simple creator-focused platform to foster direct support. However, its vulnerabilities, weak verification, payout delays, and susceptibility, if I can even spit that out, to anonymous scammers have allowed bad actors, including those people on eggs, to exploit it. And while not inherently a scam, the platform's flaws and misuse by fraudsters have tainted its reputation. And for every success story, there's a cautionary tale of lost funds or frustration. Okay, as with any platform, skepticism is your best defense. The creator economy deserves better than tools that let scammers thrive at the expense of genuine artists and supporters. So until Buy Me a Coffee tightens its security and moderation, it's a platform to approach with eyes wide open, or perhaps avoid altogether, okay? So, and with that said, look, I have a legitimate website, okay? So I recommend also, if somebody is touting a Buy Me a Coffee and they're claiming to be a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, what have you, go with folks with legitimate domain name access, right? I mean, who wants to deal with a person with just a Gmail account or a buy me a coffee link? I mean, to be quite honest with you, right? Because it's wrought with scams. It's wrought with unable to verify. And yes, people can spin up websites too, but at least you have better, it's even more professional, right, too, from a business owner's standpoint. Even if you're a solopreneur, I get it, but anymore a domain, you can set up a domain name, with way less than you're paying for buy me a coffee, right? Secure it, and of course, then you have a domain email that's a lot more professional and polished to engage with your customers, and it establishes better trust and confidence, right? And you can set up a website also for donations and especially I have a nonprofit, Cyber-Nomad. I have a for-profit and a nonprofit. I put everything up under the Cyber-Nomad umbrella, right, to help folks, with cybersecurity, consulting and education needs, right? And AI integration and all of that good old stuff. But with that said, again, trust but verify, and go to people's LinkedIns as well. Verify who they are, right? Make sure you get references from folks, okay? But I would only deal with people, honestly, even on X, with people that have legitimate websites. Honestly, maybe that's just me. But again, I'm a trust but verify kind of person. And my thing is, if you only have a Facebook page or if you only have a buy me a coffee link, or what have you, and that's how you're doing business, right? And you're promoting that you're going to grow people on X, grow followers. You're promoting yourself as a marketing guru or expert, really? And you have a buy me a coffee link, right? Kind of begs to question, really, why, right? So, and if you don't have, hundreds of thousands of followers, then even then, I'm going to question your veracity and your technical prowess, if you will, your marketing prowess if you proclaim to be a marketing expert or any type of guru for that matter, right? It's not necessarily the number of followers, but my thing is if you're promoting yourself as a marketing expert or guru and you have, less than 10,000 followers, for instance, kind of makes you wonder, right? And then if they're only promoting with a buy me a coffee link, right? And yet they're promoting business advice or business coaching or marketing mentorship or something, I would say run, because that person or those people may not be who they say they are. And I did a blog post. If you go to my cyber-nomad.com website, I've been doing blog posts. And I did an analysis also on who really is on X, right? And basically the buyers beware kind of component. Right. The scary part is if you have a lot of followers, then people automatically think you're a subject matter expert no matter what you talk about. So there's that, right? It's the Kardashian effect, if you will. People do what's trending, unfortunately. They don't really do their own analyses, right? Critical thinking, right? To deduce false from true, right? But with that said, you also have a lot of up-and-comings, which I appreciate, but then there's people on X that are purporting themselves as subject matter experts in cybersecurity and AI and business, right? And brand building, okay? And marketing and so on and so forth that are not. If you actually go do some background and some due diligence, just because they show up every day and host a space does not make them an expert. In fact, if they're on X every day, I kind of it begs me to wonder, do you even have clients? Because if you have clients, you definitely wouldn't be on X, right? That's my thing, right? So, most people, millionaires and billionaires, even though they might be represented on X as far as an account, they're either having a team run their accounts or, because again, they're growing their business, right? Most of those people are not even on X, like on the daily like that. They might show up for guest appearances or like Elon Musk, of course, because he owns X, right? Will be on there on occasion, right? And, he'll be, creating FOMO for something, which is good. Okay. That's what you're supposed to do. But to leverage X as a complete payout regime, I mean, mostly it's becoming multi-level marketing, if you will, a multi-level marketing-ish kind of thing. It's like, okay, subscribe, and then, okay, going to give you exclusive access to this, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to give you access to an ebook, right? Most of these people, though, don't even know what they're talking about, okay? They have really good trending words and phraseology, but if you look at them, a lot of them are just learning on the go anyways, okay? Or they've taken a 6-week AI course somewhere. Give me a flipping break, right? It's really frustrating because there's so much fraud on there, right? And then folks like us, right? I've got 35 years of history, bona fide history. You can go look it up, background in cybersecurity, right? With the Department of Defense, Department of Army. I'm a military veteran, U.S. Army disabled vet, right? I have a legitimate business, etc. And so it makes it very difficult then, especially because a lot of people will not trust but verify. They won't. They say, oh, what's trending? Buy me a coffee. So everybody uses buy me a coffee. And then, of course, it was referred to me to use instead of my own website. And I said, wait a minute here. No, because buy me a coffee is not a professional type of thing. It's like a real quick, catch me, if you will, real quick clickbait, And of course, it's become this trending thing now. Everybody's trying to use it on X. But that's why I did this analysis for my own self, because I'm not just because somebody said to use it. I'm not going to sit there like a dumb sheep and say, okay, let me go to use it now just because somebody referred it to me on X, which happens to have a few followers. No, absolutely not. I'm going to trust but verify, and I'm going to conduct a security impact analysis, right? Because, I do what I say what I do, right? And again, it's bad advice to use Buy Me a Coffee. It is, honestly. Go look, if you really want to be taken seriously as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, go create your own domain, okay? Go lease a domain, because you can't really buy it, even though people say buy. You're leasing the domain name anyways. Let's be real, okay? Go lease your domain name, okay? Go, whatever your company name is, go then lease that domain name, .com, .io, .ai, .whatever, okay? abc.com or whatever. And therefore, you have an email then that's also more polished and representative of a real business owner, an entrepreneur, right? Whether or not you're building an app or what have you. And therefore, people will take you a lot more seriously, in that regard. Look, I have a legitimate website, legitimate business, okay? Cyber-Nomad.com. If you need any assistance, even conducting a security impact analysis, I'll do it for you. Just ping me and I'll help you out, okay? Because a lot of people don't know where to start, okay? I'll do a full SWOT analysis and everything for you, right? My heart is with the businesses, especially small businesses and startup crew, right, et cetera. And I get it, you're trying to save money. But for less than your buyingmeacoffee.com, right, you can actually leverage, okay, your own website. And again, people will take you a lot more seriously. Because I'm not going to click on your Buy Me a Coffee link. I'm just not going to do it, right? Then you got to worry about the conversion rate and stuff. So just because somebody is telling you to use Buy Me a Coffee, right? I mean, come on, really? You're just going to follow them because they said, right? That's where I'm at, and it just cracks me up because everything is all about, oh, this is what was referred to me. So now instead of using, Patreon, or instead of now I'm going to use Buy Me a Coffee because everybody else is using it. So why don't I just use it too? No, that's not the way you should do it. In fact, that shows you're a follower, not a leader. Okay. Being a leader, is doing your own security impact analyses. Having your own thought in your framework of mindset, right? To conduct your own critical thinking exercise, if you will, right? Conduct your own analyses, okay? Unbiased analyses, right? To deduce whether or not you should use it or not and why, right? What's your return on investment also for conversion rate as an entrepreneur or business owner, right? What's the risk? What are the vulnerabilities? What are the threats, right? Are people going to take you seriously using buymeacoffee.com, right, versus your actual website, right, to convert traffic? And as you're engaging with a Gmail account or what have you, right, versus cyber-nomad.com, right, kind of account, right, kind of thing. I mean, let's be real, if you really want to be a serious business owner, right, a serious entrepreneur, for people to take you seriously, right? You've really got to lead, okay? You've really got to be a leader and show people that you're a leader with solid integrity and principles, and not just follow whatever's trending, okay? Especially as a cybersecurity business owner, right? I'm a cybersecurity firm, so there's no way, right? I would look quite dumb, right, if I was to use Buy Me a Coffee, right? And not conducting a security impact analysis and then sharing with you those results of that analysis, okay? So that, buyer beware. Now, if you continue to want to use it, even after I have warned you or cautioned you not to, that's on you, okay? But so as long as you're aware of the pros and cons and the risks associated with it, right? And that's all I'm trying to do here. Right, so you can make an informed decision based upon risk and cost, okay? So cautionary tale, if you will, and as with any online platform, okay, skepticism is your best defense. The creator economy deserves better than tools that let scammers thrive at the expense of genuine artists and supporters, right? And business owners, and so on and so forth. Solopreneurs, the freelancers, everyone out there that's trying to make a buck, okay? And is trying to provide value, right? Until Buy Me a Coffee tightens its security and moderation, right? It is a platform to approach with eyes wide open, eyes completely wide open. And for me personally, I'm avoiding it altogether, right? You can go to my legitimate website with my legitimate business, right? And we can go from there. I am not going to lead you down a rabbit hole that you don't need to go down, right? I am completely above board ethically, morally, legally, all of that. And you can even verify my credentials, right? A lot of these folks too, they're using Buy Me a Coffee, don't have the credentials necessary to even offer the coaching or mentorship, right? So therefore, that's why they're using Buy Me a Coffee, right? Think about it, okay? Just think about it. It's just like going to a Facebook page when you're trying to solicit for business, right? Sometimes you got to think, is it a mom and pop shop, et cetera? I give them a little bit of latitude, especially when people are starting up. But then I advise, right, on establishing your own domain, establishing your own website, et cetera, right? And you can spin up a website within milliseconds and then add content anymore, honestly, leveraging AI tools and resources and things. You don't even have to pay a web developer anymore to build your website, right? Build secure, maintain secure, okay? If you're integrating things or using things, right, you got to worry about the trust of your customer base, right? And of course, integrating secure solutions, and repping your brand with a polished, trustworthy look and feel, right? Across the board. So anyways, with that said, I hope this was of value to you. I hope this was helpful, right? And just trust but verify, folks. And even trust but verify everything I said today, okay? So again, this is Anna London with Cyber Nomad signing out.